Hi there, this is Patricia from patriciafente.com, and today I'm going to show you how you can take some simple Tyvek beads, and I do have a tutorial on how to make these, and how to embellish them with seed beads and wire, and also how to make them into a proper bead that you can use in various projects. And then I'll show you how you can make it into a pendant. And you could use this pendant in all sorts of projects. So you could string the beads onto some ribbon and make like a ribbon necklace, something like this. I do have a tutorial on how to make ribbon necklaces, and I'll put a link to that below as well. So you could incorporate these beads into a ribbon necklace. You could even make a ribbon necklace like this and make little short Tyvek beads here to go onto the necklace like that. So there's all sorts of possibilities that you can use these beads for. So let's get started. Now, of course, you will need some Tyvek beads, and again, I will put a link to a tutorial for that in the description box below. And then you'll need an assortment of beads. And depending on what your project is, if you want to do a pendant like this, you'll want to have a feature bead. So something that's a little bit bigger that can go at the end. And then you'll also want a medium-sized bead for your end caps, something that will go into the end of the Tyvek bead. And even if you have like a large seed bead, that would work as the end cap. And then you'll be working with some really small beads, the finest beads you can find. I don't know what number these are. I have these beads that I've collected over the years, but you're looking for the finest bead that you have, and then maybe one that's slightly bigger like this here. So you want your beads to be pretty small, pretty fine. And I have assorted colors here, some brown and gold, a copper color, and copper and brown. And then I have some blues and reds that are assorted sizes. So I'll just pick out the small beads out of those. And then you can use any color wire you want, and I'm using copper wire, and this is a 24 gauge. You wouldn't want anything heavier than this, so 24 or 26 or 28 gauge is perfect for wrapping around the bead. And then you'll need a heavier gauge, like a 20 or 18 gauge, to make your actual wire strand that goes inside the bead. And then we have some cutters, chain nose pliers, round nose pliers, a tape measure, and some scissors. So we'll start by embellishing the beads with the wire and seed beads. So depending on the size of your Tyvek bead will depend on how much wire you would need. So this bead is about 2 inches long, so you'd need about 16 inches or 41 centimeters of wire for that. And for the shorter bead, you might use 14 inches or 36 centimeters. So I've already cut my fine wire. And I'm using a 28 gauge here actually. And what you want to do, if you haven't done this already, is when you make these Tyvek beads, the end might be a little uneven. So you just want to take some scissors and cut these so that they're nice and flush, and have a nice square finish at the end of your bead. So it's nice and flat and even. And get a just nice square finish there on each side. And then what you'll do is we'll start with one end of your fine wire and we'll make a little coil. So take your round nose pliers and start to create a little coil with the very tip of your round nose pliers. And you can just get that started. And I know this is a little bit hard to see because the wire is so fine. But once you get the coil started, then you can take your chain nose pliers and just pinch the wire and pinch and wrap and pinch and wrap, and I'll just speed this up a little bit here. And you just pinch and wrap until you've created a nice little coil, nice tight little coil. And then I'm just going to take my fingers and just bend it back to a 90-degree angle there. And now you're going to thread on your seed beads, and you can do this in any way that you like, any color combination that you like, and just sort of mixing up the tiny ones and the next size. And you're going to make this about the length of your bead. So just go ahead and thread some on, and I will see you in just a little bit. Welcome back. So you can see here that I've strung on beads that are about the size of the Tyvek bead, maybe a little bit more. And of course, you can always add a few more beads or take some off once you get to the end of your wrapping. So now what you want to do is just bend this wire here, because you don't want to lose your beads off that end. And so what you want to do is you want to have your copper wire, the wrap is going this way and the wire is going in that direction. So you want to put the coil down at the top of your bead with your thumb, and you want to begin your wrap in the same direction that the wire is coming off of the coil from. And just as you do about a half a wrap, you can drop a couple of beads, and like that, and then you can just hold that with your other finger, and then you can wrap a little bit more and drop another couple of beads, or 2 or 3, and come around and just pinching that all down together like that, and then hold that last bead again, and then drop a couple of more and wrap some more. And I'll just speed this up a little bit here. And so you just continue to wrap your wire around the Tyvek bead, dropping the beads every half a wrap or so, and sort of offsetting them as you go. And so that's looking pretty good. And I do have a few beads left. I'll weave those in going in the other direction. So do the wire, wrap the wire a couple of wraps around the bottom, 1 or 2 wraps. And now we're going to come back up the other side, and this is where you can separate your beads and bring the wire in between those beads and sort of set them in place and space them out a little bit more as you wrap the wire back in the other direction, and just sort of work the beads around and wrap the wire and sort of snug them and secure the beads as you're wrapping back in the other direction. And so you're just making it so it goes in between the beads as you come up. And then at the top, you can just wrap the wire around your coil at the top, and then you can come down in the other direction and just do the same thing, just sort of securing the beads as you come down the other side again with the 3rd wrap around the Tyvek bead. And then when you get to the bottom, you want a tail that's a little over 1 inch long, and can just trim that off. And then you will make a coil going in the opposite direction. So this coil is going in that direction, so you'll do the coil in the opposite direction. So just like you did before, start it off with your round nose pliers, and then use your chain nose pliers to get that going. And then you can just use your fingers to sort of shape it and lay it down at the bottom of the bead like that. And that is the bead all wrapped. And you can kind of fiddle around here with the seed beads and adjust them and move them around and just sort of finesse it a little bit. But there you go. So that is that part of the tutorial. It's hard to show, but there you go. Now, to make the bead with the 2 loops at the end, or the coil, it's essentially the same process. So I'll show you how to do the coil and how to do this end piece. And if you want to make beads like this, you just repeat that end piece technique. So I'll show you how to do the coil and make the end of the bead. And if you are doing just the beads, then you want to measure the length of the bead plus another 2.5 to 3 inches to make your loops on either end. And then if you're doing the feature bead, you want to measure the length of the bead and about 1 inch for your top loop and about another 1.5 inches for your coil at the bottom. And I totally measured this wrong, so I am cutting the wire 6.5 inches, but that's actually a little bit too long. You could probably cut that about 5.5 to 6 inches. And I did cut a little bit extra here. I ended up with way too much wire when I did this. So, but better too much than not enough. So we'll start by making the coil at this end. And if you were making this bead, you would just start by doing the loop that I'll be showing you a little bit later on. So take your round nose pliers, and I like to work in the direction that the wire is sort of bending in when I do my coils, so you're not coiling against the wire. You just want to work with the wire. So starting with your round nose pliers, and this is the 20 gauge wire that I'm using. So start your coil with your round nose pliers, and if you go to an 18 gauge, this will be a little bit harder to do. And once you get it going, I just grab the chain nose pliers and I put the wire into the base of the chain nose pliers. And then I just start to very gently hold that and coil the wire. And I just sort of hold it and coil, hold it and coil. And then once you get it a certain length, you can use your fingers to continue to coil. And I like to make 3 full coils, just like that. And then bring your coil a little bit past that 3rd wrap and then bend it back into a 90-degree angle. So it's going straight up and down. Then you'll take your feature bead and you'll string that on, just like that. And then you can put your Tyvek bead on. And the feature bead works sort of as a bell end. And that's how you create the bottom part. And then to create the little loop on the top, you would just put your end bead, and you could use an end cap, whatever you like, just something that's big enough to fill in the hole at the end of your Tyvek bead. So you're sealing that. You don't want the bead to be too small so it goes right inside of it. And so then you'll bend the wire at a 90-degree angle, and you want to keep that quite snug, just like that. And then you'll take your round nose pliers and you can put it on about halfway up your loop. I mean, you can make your loop any size you like, but I'm doing it about halfway up. And then bend your wire away from you around in the other direction, and take your pliers and spin them around. You're not moving the wire, you're moving the pliers, and get another grip there and bring your wire around. And at this point you can straighten out the wire now and see how that creates a nice shaped loop. And you can see how the wire is way too long here, so yeah, you could knock an inch, 1.5 inches off of that. And so once you have it up in this direction like this, then you take your cutters and you want to cut really close here, right up against inside that wire there. And if you need to, you can take your chain nose pliers and open the wire up, sort of push it out in a way so you're opening it up so you have room to get the cutters in there. Kind of how you open up a looped wire whenever you're joining jewelry together. And once you've snipped that, you can take your chain nose pliers and close that up, and then take your round nose pliers and just sort of shape the loop a little bit more and close it so it's really nice and snug up against that bead, because you want to sort of push the bead down into the Tyvek bead so it's nice and snug. And there you go. And by keeping that nice and snug, you're holding everything nicely together and it's not all loosey-goosey. And then that creates a really nice pendant. And that's how you create the loop at the top. So you would do that on one side and then repeat that on the other to have a loop like that on both sides. And again, these beads would be so fabulous if you wanted to make a ribbon necklace. And again, I'll put a link to the tutorial below for the ribbon necklace tutorial. And there's different ways that you can work with ribbon and yarn for necklaces. But if you are working with the ribbon, here's the ribbon yarn, and you just want to cut this in a bit of a point, and then you put white glue on there and sort of make it into a needle shape. Let it dry really well, and then that way you can easily just thread on your beads. So you could just use plain beads like this and multiple strands of that and sort of wind them together and make a closure like this at the top, or you could string a bead on like that, tie a little knot, and then string on this embellished bead like that, and then tie another knot, and then string on another plain bead again, just something like that. And so you just have one embellished bead with maybe a series of Tyvek beads and make that into a necklace. There's all kinds of things that you could do with this. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more creative and inspiring videos. Thank you for joining me.